welcome to another edition of Trader Talk TV. Today we've got Imran from xAd in the office. Imran, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Imran's here today to talk about location targeting. It's a big thing in the mobile space and a big thing in programmatic. Before we do that, Imran, give us an overview of what you do at xAd and what xAd's about.
Sure. So Imran Khan, head of Programmatic EMEA for xAd. So essentially I help advertisers access our rich location data sets through programmatic platforms or DSPs. What is xAd? So xAd is a global location marketplace. Essentially we help advertisers and publishers extract the value of location data through mobile in-app display advertising. We work across 10 countries. We reach around 325 million unique users globally across 100 million points of interest.
All right. So let's talk about location-based targeting, right? It's a big thing at the minute.
Sure.
A lot of the marketers and agencies are interested in it. So I want to talk about why they're using it, what's the benefits for them, and then how you actually build specific segments from the different data points. So let's talk about the value prop of location targeting. So could it be so important for a particular marketer or agency?
Yeah, sure. So probably as many as you know, most of our consumption in mobile devices is happening in app, and cookies don't really work in app. Right?
No.
So that's one challenge. The other challenge is they actually only measure digital behavior, right? So they don't measure what we're doing in the real world. And why is that important? Because 90% of retail transactions actually happen in brick and mortar stores.
Yeah.
And 80% of those transactions actually happen in the spur of the moment. So what you have really is what location actually opens up is the ability to reach the right person, right time, right place in the actual, and influence that spur of the moment transaction.
In the location itself.
Exactly.
So like a use case might be someone who's out potentially shopping for a new pair of shoes, and they can be targeted with an ad for whatever else in the location that they might go in and buy something else other than shoes.
Exactly. Probably a good example of that actually, which will resonate with everyone is if you're in a kind of a BMW dealership, if you're looking for a BMW online, you're probably just browsing. I don't really know if you're in market.
Most people in that tech, they're on a BMW.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I use the example. But if you're actually in a BMW dealership, that shows you're actually in market for a car. Yeah. So it's a great time for possibly Mercedes or another competitor to reach them and say, actually, why don't you come and try one of our new models? So
you could take that data then someone could buy that segment, BMW in market, and then target an ad against it, basically.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's talk about the how you actually build this information, because obviously there's lots of different data points, right?
Yeah.
So let's map in the board about how xAd actually build their technology and how they sort of enable people to use location-based targeting.
Sure. So I think the first thing is actually how do you understand where the device actually is?
Yeah.
Based on the signals that it's producing. So if we just take signals, right? So if you imagine this is a bunch of location signals coming from multiple devices. Yeah. Right. So what you need to be able to do is contextualize that, right?
Yeah.
And so there are a couple of signals that on mobile devices throughout. So GPS, which is usually the most accurate form of location signal, because it's usually in an app you're using, like a weather app. Yeah. Any kind of location-based app, and it asks for your permission to use location, right? So GPS is usually good to identify if you're within a few meters of the location that you've actually sent through that signal. So that's a pretty good indicator if you want to hit somebody. And then there's IP address or Wi-Fi. Yeah. Now, you do get some. So there's real challenges with this, and this is kind of a very traditional use of where location's been used, because IP address, you can get good Wi-Fi, which is kind of from a hotspot, but then the vast majority of it is kind of public Wi-Fi, right? Yeah. And so the exchange could be a few miles out, it could be 25 miles out, it could be in a completely different city. Yeah. So it kind of, it really depends on the quality of that IP address. Yeah. But really to identify if somebody is in a place at that moment, it's not a very good signal. And then you have cell tower data. So this is kind of what a lot of the operators use. So when you're on the 4G network, etc. Now the problem with this is it all depends on kind of the distance between the cell towers. So if the masts are kind of 5 miles apart, you can only guarantee that somebody's in a 5 mile radius of that location. So what you need to be able to do is kind of sift through all that data and then decision on it. And another challenge is you've also got, I just call it bad data.
Right, bad data.
Yeah. This happens when you're doing things, especially when you're doing location at scale. So what you have is you have kind of two main challenges, which are sifting out centroids.
Centroids?
Yeah.
What's that?
So centroids are, usually what will happen is a developer or a publisher will pass a location as part of the ad request.
Yeah.
And what that location will appear to be is kind of the centre of, let's say, London,
Mm-hmm.
which is actually Victoria Embankment, or the centre of the UK, and it will persistently pass that location. So you can, if you've got technology to sift it out, you can pretty much be aware that that's not a genuine signal.
Right.
That's just been sent by the publisher, and it could be quite innocent because it could be they have some registration data,
Right.
and they're appending that and then passing it within the ad request, the bid request. So that's one. The other one is kind of what we call randomized lat longs.
So I guess this is a randomized latitude, longitude, like so.
Yeah, and this is a lot more malicious.
Right.
So this is when a publisher or a developer is actually trying to game their location in order to generate a higher CPM, or to say I'm in the UK, etc.
All right.
So what this happens is a
good old fraud in location.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what happens? It all exists everywhere, right? So what happens is a publisher will append a few digits on the latitude longitude that's passed in the bid request, so it appears kind of genuine. But then over time, as you look at it, it appears quite uniform.
Right. So they're using the same one for over and over again.
Yeah.
Right,
so it'll probably appear like that, like a grid.
Yeah.
And then you can, if you've got technology and a methodology to sift that out, you can filter that out.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few considerations on the signal side.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good in terms of, right, I know Kieran's device is throwing out an accurate location signal. But that's kind of useless if you can't contextualize it with place.
Right.
Right. So the other challenge is place data.
Yeah.
So if you're on Google Maps, for example, and you're looking for a location, it will take you essentially to the address, the postcode. And that's what the postcode was designed to do. It's for the postman to deliver my mail, put you on the street. What it's not very good at is actually identifying if somebody's in an actual Asda or in the exchange wire office, for example.
Well, you won't find this office too easy.
Yeah. So what you need is actually technology to map out the actual place. So what you'd find is, what most mapping technology does is, if you say this is the building, put the address here. And what happens is you would build your location contextualization in probably a circle like that, or a circle like that, for example, and say that's let's call that Asda, for example. Whereas in reality, what you need to understand is, if this is Asda, and then you could have the car park here, you need to be able to map that. And the reason that's important, because if you want to understand, let's say you've done a location campaign where you said, I want to drive people to an Asda store for an offer that they might have at that time, you need to know if that person has actually gone in there and not just passed by the street, passed by the building, or driven by the building, for example. If you want to actually build accurate profile on loyalists, Asda loyalists, you need to understand that somebody's actually been in the building. Another use case would be, if you want to build up a behavioural audience segment based on where people actually go. They go to Asda, they go to Mothercare, they go to some other stores or other places of interest. You need to have technology that can actually map that Asda out.
So this is how you build your segments then?
Exactly.
Taking this data for location based, right? And then this for basically where they've been. So if you know they've been in an Asda store, you can actually build
exactly
the segment around that specific brand, effectively.
Exactly. Because if you're doing it like this, there's a huge amount of wastage. And then if you don't have this part done as well, you can imagine the problem extrapolates, right, and becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. So where you want to end up really is a place where you've got the Asda, for example, and so you've got some circles here. So you have these location signals where you can plot them here. One is here.
Yeah.
One is here. One is here. One is here. Right. So that kind of becomes your foundational accuracy piece, or your foundation to do actual accurate location.
So is this your IP then? This ability to do this basically?
Yeah. So we have patents actually granted on our location verification.
Yeah.
And then we're the only company, and this technology that we built, which draws polygons around actual buildings, is something we call blueprints.
Blueprints.
Yeah. And we've mapped that out for 100 million places of interest globally.
Really? 100 million?
Yeah. So
are there really 100 million places of interest in the world?
I think there's a lot more.
Yeah.
So we're in a lot of markets, right? So we're in China, for example.
Yeah.
So that's absolutely huge.
So obviously taking this data, then you build your segments.
Yeah.
How does a marketer agency use those? What are the use cases? Is it a case of like, is it typical retargeting him, or are they doing more sophisticated stuff around?
Yeah.
Like?
So I think one of the biggest use cases.
Yeah,
let's rub this off. So I'll list the use cases.
Yeah.
So the first one I would identify, which is pretty obvious, is kind of conquest targeting.
Conquest targeting.
Yeah.
Sounds like I don't know what that is. It sounds very glamorous.
Very, I guess, Game of War.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how is that? What is that?
So I think in the example I gave you earlier, which was I'm in a BMW dealership. Now I'm Mercedes or I'm Audi. I want to own all the BMW dealerships and the ownerships. So if I can understand that somebody's actually in that dealership, that's a great moment to target. Because I know they're in market for content.
So basically, top of the funnel, sort of, like proper intelligent prospecting, effectively.
And that it's not just for BMW. That could work for a fast food restaurant. It could work for a coffee drinker, retail store loyalist, etc. So that's a very obvious one. Number two is a product we've launched recently called Store Visitation Lift.
Store visitation lift.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if I want to, and the example I gave earlier around most of the transactions that actually happen in the real world, if you take that logic, what's great, and we're spending most of our time on our mobile devices, a great way to actually bring attribution and efficacy to mobile advertising is actually, can I prove that advertising has actually driven somebody into my
connecting
store?
Offline sales with sort of online advertising activity, right?
And obviously, I think right now the technology is not there in the UK and at least the US to close the loop completely.
How do you do this then? What's the use case for that like?
So the use case for that is if we know from our technology where everybody is based on their location signals, we can then serve them an ad, and then what we can do as well is then see actually, have they then gone and visited a store?
By using location targeting.
Location targeting.
So basically, if you serve the ad, and within a window of like, I don't know, whatever your sort of window is, you can say that they've actually visited this store. Yeah. Therefore, that ad did actually have a direct effect on them.
Exactly. So you can start building some interesting attribution models based on basket sizes. For example, if you drove somebody into McDonald's, it's probably unlikely that they actually just browsing in McDonald's, right? They probably bought a Big Mac.
So you position this as kind of an attribution product, or as a more of a media buying product?
I think it's still early days. I think as location becomes table stakes and the data grows, I think we'll hopefully get to a point where you can attribute it like in a performance marketing way, where you can say, I've driven this media at the user level. I think right now it's more of a kind of a brand study, a very effective one, right? And in mobile advertising, because of the lack of cookies, this is a great way to kind of bridge that gap.
It's interesting because if you spend £1 million brand, how many times have they visited the store, or have they visited the store in the last 14 days? Exactly. Do you have a window? Like, I mean, how do you pitch the agency? Go, right, we have a window of like 2 days, 4 days, 5 days.
Yeah, I think it depends on the actual type of store.
Right.
So if it's kind of a fast food chain, you probably want to see those effects immediately.
Yeah,
it's
and
a more considered purchase.
Insurance.
You might see that over a longer period of time.
Right.
So it really does depend. But I think the importance is that you're actually able to attribute that they've actually been in that building, rather than just another retail store or somewhere around there.
And do you have many customers using this tool?
Yeah, this is growing pretty rapidly.
It feels a bit like post view for display, but actually, without the cookie. So like you're saying, if I spend X amount of money, and here's my CPA, and your CPA is okay. If I spend £1 million here and all these users, then I would expect to have 20, 30 visits and have like a CPA. Then we go, how do I prove they get into the store? Well, they came into the store, and we can prove that against the thing, and we know that user is
exactly.
It's quite interesting, actually.
Yeah, so that's a very powerful use cases for a lot of retailers, and I think a more broader one is audience profiling.
Right.
Audience profiles. So because we can match the signal up to the person in the store, we can actually say, there's two things. We can look at it as they regularly visit this place, so they're a loyalist. So is that an opportunity for me as a brand to then re-engage them with offers so that they stay loyal? Or is it an opportunity for competitors to come in there and try and sway them to one of their products? So that's where it gets really interesting. And I think another one is actually building up a persona or a profile of the actual person based on the multiple places that they visit, because if they've been X, Y, and Z place, like they play golf, and then they go to BMW garage and they go somewhere else, you kind of build a picture of what's their actual socio-demographic segment, which is completely kind of PII compliant.
So it's kind of like the supercharged audience segment, basically, for the mobile devices. And I mean, is that being sold to agencies on a programmatic way, or is it
both.
On IO basis?
Yeah, I mean, in both ways. So we're seeing huge amounts of growth on the programmatic side, and trying to access that, because if agencies, I mean, I think all these things, the goal is really to get this access via a programmatic medium.
What are you looking to push out this year as innovation? Like, is this the big one here, number 2, or
so actually, the biggest innovation that's coming out of xAd is our own platform products under the marketplace umbrella. So we actually launched at MWC what we call a campaign builder, which is essentially, if I was just to sum it up, is a way to buy location like you buy keywords on search, essentially. So I want to buy all these people in this location in real time, and I can just go into a self-service UI and do that. And then there's going to be another 2 phases to that product launch later this year. But that's going to be huge, because I think that what that allows us to do is actually catapult location to being a category.
And it's not a category yet.
Do
you still find it a tough job with convincing the agencies as the value of this, or is it?
No, I think that.
Or is it just an evolution based?
Yeah, I think it's an evolution based. I think agencies and brands as well are actually really seeing the value of this, because if we think about mobile advertising, it's really been very app download focused, very performance focused, because of a lack of being able to kind of build those segments. So if you imagine what the mobile device does with location, is it just acts as a real world cookie.
I think, I mean, all these, this is a powerful, but this SVL thing, the biggest issue I have with mobile at the minute is the post view, because you can't do post view on a cookie on mobile, because it's, there's multiple mobile universes. But this SVL thing could be quite interesting for sort of having a hard metric to prove that display advertising is working on mobile effectively.
Yeah, and I think what we're seeing in some of our other markets, like particularly China, where mobile is really advanced, because they don't really have experience of desktop in those markets. They're mobile first markets. So what you find is they're using a lot of apps like WeChat and
Yeah,
all these,
I mean they're mostly mobile centric.
Yeah, but what's interesting there is they actually use that to make payments in the real world.
It's a proper platform.
So we've actually done some. We've worked with some brands there, and what we found is because we can actually close the complete loop, so we can say, right, we can identify you're outside the store, you've then gone in, but then we can actually then link that back to payment.
Yeah.
What we're seeing is we're actually outperforming search and social against the local players there.
Interesting. Well, Imran, thank you very much for coming in and doing a full run through the whole product suite and location targeting. I look forward to the new product coming up in the next couple of months, and we'll see you next time on Trader Talk TV.
Excellent.
And we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Cheers.